Well, I never really expected to be at the point where I would have beat 50/20 in Ultimate Custom Night. It is really a really difficult challenge, and I never expected to actually to beat it. So I just wanted to make a video to kind of give a kind of guide and an example of the kind of progression you should have, but not that you have to have, because obviously some characters are going to be too hard to deal with, and if you haven't even played the game, you shouldn't just jump in to like a big roster of characters on, even if a lot of them are just distractions. This is just a simple progression guide of how to reach that point, learning the smallest amount you can along the way. So this first amount of characters, 29, will give you 5,800 points, and I would recommend just getting the game if you have any intent to beat 50/20, getting the game and playing around, right? Doing whoever you want, trying the characters or the challenges, just learning how to play the game. Obviously, to start off, the keybinds and everything else, the systems and the cameras and the mask, and then you should jump into this. But I would not recommend having Afton or Music Man, because Music Man does require you to be very careful with the phone calls and Helpy, who will aggravate him. They won't kill you, they're not harmful, but they will aggravate Music Man, something that you have to be careful of. And also Afton, which is a one-time event, you have to be very quick with it, and sometimes it can be very disorientating and just unexpected. So I would recommend going for 5,400 first and just using what you see on screen, these characters, and I will show you how to handle them, and then we'll make our way up, discussing all the new characters that you should be adding and learning along the way. But this, besides Afton and Music Man, who I'd recommend not trying to start with, this is a good amount of characters. So going in, immediately, no matter how many characters you have on, you should always turn off the fan to start, alright? Even if you have jack-o-chica on, to keep the fan on, you're already on 60 at the start. It is pointless. So always turn off the fan, right? You can hold down the space button while the screen is black and it will turn off before you enter the game, but if you're just starting off with something simple like 29 characters, I would not recommend trying that. You can just wait and turn it off. You have that time. Then immediately enter the cameras and go to the duck system. What you're seeing right now is obviously me. I've already beat 50/20 before this amount of points. Only at like 8,000 will you see my actual progression, because these videos were filmed after I beat 50/20, just as a show of how to do them. Because if you start at 8,000, you're probably going to lose over and over and over, and you need somewhere simple to start. And this is, kind of the score I used to have, maybe a little bit more than this, but still, like, just start somewhere. So duck system, and you place it on the left. It can be very far left or just kind of middle left, as long as the circle covers the left bar, right? And just remember, you don't have to do it this fast, but you gotta be quick, you gotta be careful, but you don't have to do everything as spontaneously as I'm doing it. You can take your time, and just do it at your own pace. And if there's any characters that you are struggling with, you're losing to, anything like that, you can remove them and then add them in when you're ready for them. But this should be easy enough. So just straight to the ducks, audio lure, camera system, camera 2, okay? When you go to camera 2, you won't have to handle Baby, Nightmare Bonnie, Nightmare Mangle, or Rockstar Chica. Those 4 are just free points. As long as you're on camera 2 the entire time, you don't have to be watching the cameras, but as long as you're on it, you'll be fine. So that's already 7 of them done. We don't have to care about those guys anymore. Put on the mask every time you come out of the cameras. It doesn't matter. You shouldn't wait to see if he's there or not. Mask on, okay? Then you can pop Helpy, even though if you have Music Man, if he's not on, Helpy actually doesn't matter. And because you have no one in the vents, neither does Phantom Freddy. So this is why it's so easy. You can let so many characters just attack you and they don't do anything, and they're only a problem in later amounts of characters and points, like 50-20. So flash that guy, catch the fish, close the door. You don't have to do it this fast, but obviously I know what's going on, and I'm just doing it as quick as I can. But you can take your time, right? Things are slower than I'm making them look. Like that phone call, you could have waited another 5 seconds right before you hung it up, but just do things as quick as you can. It's better to be quick in this game. Just skip the ad. You can click enter, even though that's harder. And as you can see, every time you go on the cameras, just be quick with the phantoms and go into the mask. And like I was saying, you just need to be quick, but you need to do it at a normal pace, because obviously if you've already beat a higher amount of characters, you're going to be more focused, like I am here, where I've already done all the characters. So as soon as things are coming, they're not necessarily threats, but I'm stopping them as soon as I see them. But you'll slowly get better and better at handling these earlier ones, but they do become a problem later on, right? So in this, I could miss the fish here, doesn't matter, but it would matter if I had someone like Foxy, who's one of the hardest characters. And with the ad, like I was saying, just enter or click it with the mouse. I'd 100% recommend doing mouse. The only reason you wouldn't do it with your mouse and click enter is if you had Nightmare on. So just forget about that, okay? Every time you close the cameras, you can try and close the vent to see if he's there, which is, you know, you can just check. You don't have to try and guess if BB or JJ are there. You can just check and close it if they are. And as you saw, Rockstar Chica was there. She's not going to attack you. And also, Rockstar Freddy is now active. We just need to pay him 5 coins. And I do, in fact, have 5 coins right now, which is just popping Helpy and blocking off JJ or BB. And I've got to 5 coins because they give you coins when you stop them. But if you don't have 5 coins, you can just click the 3 keybind. I don't know what it is on console, so I'm sorry if you just have to learn the keybinds on controller. Just turn on the heater and he will slowly malfunction. And since we aren't worried about heat, it's already at the max heat. Even though heat does make you have to reset the camera more, we don't worry about heat because it isn't important. There is no lefty, there's no jack-o-chica. It's not affecting you in any way.
Please deposit.
Just pay the 5 coins if you have them. Don't always just try and turn on the heater if you have the 5 coins. Always try and pay him first. So as you can see right there, that was Afton. You need to be very quick. It's like a 1 second window. You just need to stop him 1 time in the night. He does add in this kind of where nothing's happening, this kind of low score. He adds a kind of challenge that's, you know, it kind of adds a bit more excitement to it. So I would recommend trying to add that in as quick as you can. You know, maybe immediately you just go for that and be ready for that, because it isn't hard to block. Sometimes you can be distracted or on the cameras, but you know, I'd recommend every time you open the cameras, you check that it isn't at 10 seconds. So 10, 20, 30, 40, etc. Just make sure it's not there. You know, if you want to be safe, if the ads are kind of making it really hard for you, you can't get the mask because you can't see it, or you can't reset the ventilation, just wait till it's any time in between each 10-second interval, and then the ads will not appear while you're on the cameras if you go in between those 10-second intervals, because the ad can only spawn every 10 seconds. Now that was a tricky phone call to stop. So that's why having Music Man on is kind of a risk, because sometimes the phone call is in the worst spots, you miss it, whatever. It's not the phone call, especially in 5020. The phone call might seem easy, but it is not a very easy character sometimes to handle. Sometimes it would just be in the corner of the screen, you don't notice it. It would just be hidden or close to a mask or cameras, and you'll just accidentally do something you don't want to. So that is something that you should be careful with. Make sure you master stopping the phone calls before you start trying to add Music Man. There we go. There we go. Now, for anyone, and I mean anyone who gets this game, that challenge that I just did, 29, should be easy enough. That should be possible by everyone who gets the game, right? So that is a very good starting point for anyone who wants to beat 5020, but they just started. Now, this is a pretty big step up. I will say, the further you go along, the smaller the steps will be. So it will be, adding 10 new characters, then 5, then 3, then 1, right? And it will get lower and lower because the characters will progress in difficulty and less of their mechanics will start to blend in. But here, from 29 to 35, right, we have these new characters that all kind of fall under the same thing that we're going to be doing here, which is office stalling. Now, I didn't add Nedbear and Orville because they are a bit harder to understand, but they are kind of in the same category, and they, once you've beat 35, you should just add these other two in, Orville and Nedbear. So, office stalling is basically characters that are ready to kill you, but they cannot attack until the cameras are open. So if you just close off their door right when you open up the cameras, then guess what? They can't get in. So without Nedbear and Orville, we would just be focusing on the left door and the top vent. So A and W, right? When you add Nedbear and Orville, you will also be clicking 3. Now, I know I'm only talking about keyboard, but it's basically left door, top vent, and heater. Every time you open up the cameras, you want to have those 3 on. Now, this is something that I do differently from all the other people who I've seen guides, people who have done 5020 and they've done guides on how to beat it. This is different because I close the left door, top vent, and turn on the heater when I'm opening the cameras, just for the short second or two, not even a second, like 0.5 of a second that I'm on the camera, and then just turn them all off. But other people who do guides recommend closing the left door, waiting because it's just Freddy, okay? Just for the thud, and then lift it back up. Turning on the heater for a short while, then turning back on whatever you have, the music box or the power generator, which we'll get to later. That's not important right now. And then only clicking W, or closing the top vent, when you are going on the cameras. And the thing is that you need to always click W or close the top vent, because characters like Mangle will not be stopped by the door. She will always be there ready to attack. As soon as she gets there, she is stopped by snares, that's her mechanic. But if the door is closed while you're on the cameras, she can never get in, but she'll never go back. So you make sure that the top vent is always closed while you have the cameras open, which should only be a very short amount of time. You should be getting quicker and quicker with resetting the ventilation. Now, I would recommend for anyone who is new to 5020 to just kind of do what I do and just click AW3, all 3 in line, or whatever it is on controller, which might be different than this, but specifically on keyboard, all in the line, click them all, click S, which is the keybind for the monitor, and then click reset ventilation, click S again, and click all three of them again. It sounds like a lot, so we're not going to have Nedbear and Orville yet, so not the heater, but the left door and the top vent. Every time I open the cameras, I will just have those two closed, and then open them as soon as I get out. So you want to do all the same things. You want to go to the ducts, place the audio lure, go to camera 2, right, turn off the fan. Same thing. We always, until we reach about like 50-20, you know, we're always going to be wanting to do the same pattern, just adding new things. Now, I did forget to mention that at this point, you should already have Music Man and Afton learned, right? So, what you're going to see is when I open the cameras here, just before you do it, you'll hear the doors close. It'll be A and W, left door, top vent, and then I'll go in, reset, go out, mask, important, and then open the back up. So that will just block them off, right? I used to think that you had to block off the characters individually, so I didn't used to have Freddy on, and I'd just do the vent ones and just, you know, block them off when I heard them or saw them or whatever their mechanic is. But you can just close them while the cameras are open and they cannot attack, because you block them right when they're going to. And remember, heat still doesn't matter, so that's why Orville and Nedbear should not be as hard, because, you know, they're in line with the left door and the top vent, the keybind for the heater, but also because we don't care about heat at this point, and, you know, that's just something that we want to use to block them off. And yeah. Once again, left door, top vent. I did it every time. And as you can see, the phone call is running, but since I'm not letting any other noise happen, it should actually be fine. It shouldn't really aggravate him. So just make sure Helpy doesn't go off when the phone call is going. Make sure you don't have the fan, you don't have the power generator. You can let the phone call run, but you should be careful with it in case something like Helpy attacks, or you accidentally let Phantom Mangle in, which would add a lot of noise. But that shouldn't be happening. At this kind of level, you should be getting better and better at the old mechanics and learning these new ones. Now that was a lot that just happened there. Obviously, someone like Afton can kill you. There will be mistakes. There will be times where you just die by something that you think is unfair. I think it's also worth noting that I opened the top vent and the left door very quickly after I leave the cameras, but you can take an extra 3 seconds, extra 2 seconds, whatever you want. You can, you know, take your time and deal with this, you know, Toy Chica, Toy Bonnie's coming, you put on the mask, or there's the ad, before you focus on opening those. Because as you'll see, when we end the night, we still have a lot of power left that we could have, you know, used. And it's just power that we don't really need. So if you want to spend that extra power, that's fine. Maybe you want to close the right vent when you open the cameras in case Afton comes, that's fine. And there we go. I did forget to mention if you do ever see Foxy's parrot, just ignore it, right? Just leave it alone, okay? You don't have to interact with it. If it's at the start of the game and, 1 a.m. and it's getting really noisy, you can try and click on the parrot, right, and just get soundproof to try and protect yourself from Music Man. But if it's like 4 a.m., the parrot's there, just don't try it. It's never worth it. You can just ignore it. It doesn't really do much. Now, as you can tell, in this video, I only have the bronze Freddy statue, because this was before I beat 5020. So this is an actual moment of progression. This was either the first or second time that I ever beat 8,000, right? And at this point, all we are adding is just a few things, right? Only 5 characters. Obviously, Nedbear and Orville, who aren't really new because I did talk about them before, but they are, 2 of the new ones. So just click into heater, right? You should, before you do these other 3, you should learn to do heater as well as the left door and the top vent before you open the cameras, right? That is something that you should learn before you go into this. But at this point, if you want to add them in at the same time, they really aren't that difficult. You just also click heater or 3, right? And the 3 new characters that are actually we have not talked about or mentioned are Nightmare Balloon Boy, Nightmare, and Nightmare Fredbear. Nightmare and Nightmare Fredbear are actually quite rare, like they don't spawn that often, especially if you're only on the cameras for a very quick amount of time. They probably won't spawn the entire time. But basically, you just look to the left, you look to the right. If you see any eyes, you just close the left or right door, depending on which side they are. You can also hear a laugh, which is another indicator. So these 2, they're actually not that hard. You could have added them earlier, but this is after you've gotten used to camera stalling. There's obviously now 2 new threats that you have to deal with, even though they might not even spawn. I don't even think they spawn in this video. But Nightmare Balloon Boy is definitely a step up in progression. He is a little bit more difficult than all the other characters we've talked about, as you really do need to focus on him. And you'll see in a lot of 5020, big professional runs, attempts at higher scores, Nightmare Balloon Boy can be a threat a lot of the time, because he can be hard to counter or hard to notice. But if he's standing up, after you put down the camera, you use your flashlight on him. If he's sitting down, you don't use the flashlight on him, okay? So there's 2 ways you can lose. Flipping up the camera before you flash him if he's standing up, or flashing him when he's sitting down after putting the camera down. So he's a little bit more complicated, but if you've already mastered everything else that's on, office stalling, being quick on the cameras, placing the audio lure, going to camera 2, it shouldn't be that much harder. Okay, I did forget to go to the 4th office. That's why I just quit it there. That's why I gave up. You can hold escape for 3 seconds in a run to just end it immediately. So I just wanted to switch offices. Maybe this was, the 3rd time I beat it, but I still do think this was probably the 2nd time I ever did 8,000. Even though, if you've already mastered the previous mechanics, it's really only Nightmare Balloon Boy, so it isn't that hard. At this point, 8,000 should be an easy amount to you. But still, yeah. Now, speaking on offices, you can pick any office you want. It actually doesn't matter. But 4 is the best for many different reasons, like it's light and the help spawn and many other things that people talk about. But specifically, I mean, it is just the brightest compared to the other 3. No flickering lights or anything. And 2 and 1 are pretty dim, and the first, if you're in the first one, it switches rooms some of the time. And the 3rd one isn't actually bad. I know that some people actually prefer to use 3, as it has a better helpy spawn, I think, and maybe some other things. But really, this is just the best room, especially for your first time beating 5020. Obviously you can only unlock it at 8000, so once you beat this you'll now have it, so only this point onwards should you be using this, but still, once you have it, it should be the one that you try to use the most. Now, if you just saw, the heat just skyrocketed up. It was at, I think, 88 before, it was reaching 90 down here, and then it just went straight up to 98 because I turned on the heater, right? So that's a thing that, you know, the heat will go up, the power usage will go up. So obviously stopping Nedbear and Orville, if you have someone on like Jack-o-chica and Lefty, which you probably shouldn't have on yet, right? Unless, you know, you've already learnt Lefty where you like turn on the fan and keep the noise down, whatever. We won't talk about that yet, but the heat will go up and the power will go up, so it is a bit harder with the heater, but this is just added on to the office stalling, and you should be able to learn it. Now, something you can notice is that he is a little bit blocked by Rockstar Freddy, but Nightmare Balloon Boy is standing up, so use the flashlight, send him back down. And once he is on the ground, he is not a problem. Always remember, keep your camera on the left side, like your mouse, where you're viewing. Because when you use your flashlight to get rid of Phantom Freddy and the Freddles, you don't want to accidentally flash Nightmare BB, right? That's why he's a bit of a problem. So just always stay on the left side. Obviously, you can look over to see if there's, I think it's Nightmare in the right door and also BB and JJ in the right vent. Just, you can look over, but just try and stay on the left side, especially when using the flashlight. Now, I don't know if you heard that, but there was a very faint laugh to the right, which means, and even if you saw it, that means Nightmare is at the right door. Right, so unless you open the cameras, he will not attack you. So you can see I have to catch the fish, I have to pay for Rockstar Freddy, I have to flash Nightmare Balloon Boy. So I should catch the fish first because that's the most important thing. That's quick time. But the other three things, I can wait quite a while before I do those. Until I open the cameras, or, you know, waiting a long time for Rockstar Freddy. He takes like 30 seconds, 40 seconds to actually attack you. You know, you have to have priorities of what you're doing first. So I caught the fish, I paid the coins, I flashed Nightmare Balloon Boy. I'm going to close the ad and then block off Nightmare before I open the cameras next.
We're depositing 5 coins.
Okay, I actually did close off Nightmare before I flashed Nightmare BB. I couldn't see because of the ad. I thought I did. You can still do everything while the ad is there, you just can't see. But yeah, so just block off Nightmare or Nightmare Fredbear, whichever one is there, before you open the cameras. You can take as long as you want, but I recommend doing it as quick as possible in case other things start coming in. It's you know, adding a lot on your to-do list. Now, I'm actually not sure what I was doing or thinking right now because I kept the right door closed like the entire time. I don't know why. I think I just maybe didn't notice, but that is taking up a bit of power. I think you can still survive having the right vent door, or just one of the doors, any of the doors, closed the entire time. But obviously closing the left door, top vent, and turning on the heater when we open the cameras, that's 4 blocks of power. So, you know, when you start adding all those things on top of each other, you want to be careful with the power. Okay, I finally noticed that the right vent door was closed. And I'm playing a little bit, you know, wonky here, kind of making bit of mistakes with my mouse, like a little bit shaky. I think that's because maybe my sensitivity was wrong at this time, but you know, you should have your mouse is at a sensitivity where you can calmly click everything and make sure you're getting everything, but make sure it's also fast enough so that you can reach stuff quickly. Especially in 50/20, you want to make sure that it's fast enough to do stuff quickly. Scrap Baby, a character we did not even talk about. I'll actually go back to kind of show you that. When I opened the cameras and closed them again, obviously after an attack, so you can't really see, but Scrap Baby, who didn't even spawn in that first video because we had the cameras open for such a short time, she's now moved. So when she is looking up, right? And I should have explained this earlier, but she is only here now. When she is looking up at you, which is very obvious, just don't open the cameras until you click the shock button on the desk, okay? She's not a main priority because she doesn't attack until the cameras are open, but it is something that you should do, you know, as quick as possible. She does make the room dark, and obviously if it's already going dark because of the ventilation, then it might be, you know, it might go too dark before you notice it. So I'm going to click the shock box, flash this guy, pop helpy, do, you know, the same rhythm as usual. But obviously if she's there, you know, you can actually flash when she's not standing up. It doesn't do anything, but, you know, it makes it go dark. So just don't do it. And as you can see, Nightmare Fredbear on the left side. I mean, they are pretty rare spawns, but yeah, I got both of them, so clearly, you know, they do come sometimes and you just have to block them off. Something you have to be aware of. Okay, I did win, even though, you know, I was kind of, my mouse was a little bit shaky there, too fast, I guess, but the power was getting a little bit low. You know, for 8,000, it was on 20%. I mean, that is kind of a normally low power, like you still have 20%, right? But you just got to be, you know, quick and cautious. And, you know, you should be able to do it consistently without running out of power. 8,000, 40 of them. But you still have to be careful whatever amount of points you have. Now, I will say, this step up from 8,000 to 8,800, out of the 3 step ups that we're going to be doing, I think it is, besides 50/20, right? This one is definitely, from Nightmare Balloon Boy, the biggest one, okay? So, Rockstar Bunny is basically someone that we cannot handle. With this amount of characters, we cannot handle his mechanic, and we don't want him to spawn. So, to explain that to you, he spawns every 13 seconds, okay? So 13, 29, 26, and 39. So we don't want to be on the cameras at those exact times, right? We do not want to be on the camera. When it hits 13 seconds, don't be on the cameras. And, you know, so on for every 13 seconds. Because if he spawns, that is a problem. Now, he still is rare. He's kind of, you know, Nightmare Fredbear rare, where sometimes he just doesn't spawn, but just try not to be on the cameras at those times, right? Because that can be bad, and just try and be as quick as possible as well, added bonus. And then these 3 other characters should honestly all be done separately, right? This jump is actually quite significant, and it doesn't seem like much of a jump, but it really is, you know, like all 3 characters here, Nightmarion, Ballora, jack-o-chica, they should all be done separately, learned separately. I think people say Ballora is a lot easier. I'll just tell you this, I have struggled with Ballora more than so many of the other characters. She just sometimes doesn't make any sound, she blends in, I can't tell she's there, and to this day, if you see in the 50-20 video, I just close both doors, and I've got better at, you know, closing them and opening them quick enough so it's that really not wasting much power. But still, I think Ballora is easy if you can tell where she's coming from, but at this point with this many characters, she's really difficult. Okay, and you can also add Lefty, you know, on top of 8,000, but when you add jack-o-chica, you really shouldn't have Lefty, and I'll explain why. I mean, you can, but last time we were at 8,000 and we had 20% power. So at this point, something you do in 50-20, right? You have power generator and fan, and then 15 seconds to switch to global music box, which we won't talk about now. But the fan gets rid of heat, which is good for Lefty, but it adds noise, which is bad for Lefty. So then the global music box, which soothes him, kind of, you know, gets rid of that half bad, and it just kind of fully soothes him. So it's kind of a perfect cycle that plays into other characters' mechanics, but it just merges into him. It just blends in. So you could literally have every character but Lefty and learn it all, right? 49. And then add Lefty and nothing will change, right? So Lefty is someone that you could have had in earlier, but with jack-o-chica, if you're, you know, struggling with power, with the fan, because you do need to keep it cool for jack-o-chica, that's the mechanic. So whenever it gets hot, like 80 degrees, 90 degrees, you turn on the fan, turn it cool. You can turn on the power AC, but that's, you know, kind of a bigger waster of power, or at least I think it is. It might actually be the same, but, you know, you can actually just have on the power AC if you want, but it is better to have fan and power generator to save that power, but that obviously affects Lefty. So I'd recommend at this point leaving Lefty. So that's Ballora, and that's jack-o-chica. Nightmarion is one of the most infamous characters in the game, probably the one I've died to the most. Just like add her when you've mastered, you know, you can dodge Rockstar Bunny, you can defend Ballora, you can do the fan and possibly the power generator as well, or the power AC, whatever you want to do. I'd recommend power generator and fan, and which requires you to then be good with the phone call and helpy, so that there's not a lot of noise for Music Man. But once you've mastered all these characters that you see, add Nightmarion, because she's just an added threat that is so frustrating. She kills you in like 0.8 seconds. Right, if your mouse is on her. So you need to be very careful with where you put the mouse, and every single guide has said keep your mouse on the left side, and that is true. That is what you should be doing, specifically like left corner, left side. You know, you won't be on her. If she starts appearing, you've got your mouse in the wrong place. But just always try and look at the left, which is helpful for Nightmare Balloon Boy and also Nightmarion. So all the characters that I'm adding, the 4 new ones, you can be, you know, one at a time, or maybe just by themselves, with whatever you want. Just learn them slowly, and then this is a score before we get into really hard territory, right? The last few. This is a score that you know, it feels like you're almost there, kind of thing, right? So this is just blocking Ballora, you know, dodging Rockstar Bunny the times that he spawns, because you don't want him to spawn, keeping your mouse off Nightmarion, and keeping it cool with either the fan and the power generator, which is recommended, but requires you to keep the noise down, or the power AC. As you can see, I did that very fast, okay? Like, very fast. You don't have to do it that fast, but I recommend being as fast as you can, right? As fast as you can on the cameras. Be very quick. Do it, you know, just be on and off, quick as you can. Do what you need to do. Get out of there. And you'll get better and better as time goes on. You know, when you get closer to 50-20, it should get easier to just be, you know, 3 seconds on and off, doing that start stuff. put on the mask as usual, follow the rhythms, but this time, obviously, I have all the 4 new characters on, so I'm going to be wanting to handle them all at the same time, as you'll see. I think I'm doing stuff unnecessarily quick. Like, I didn't need a flash Nightmare Balloon Boy like that. I could have just taken my time. So don't try and rush it this much. And like I mentioned earlier with the ad, at this point, Nightmare on, you want to just click enter. Take your hand off the mouse, click enter. There's so many keybinds in this game that you should, it should be a time where, obviously, if you're on the cameras, that's just bad timing. And you can still remember where the stuff is, clicking reset ventilation. And the ad, you can still avoid the ad without having to close it. But when you're in the office, the ad appears, you just take your hand off the mouse, which should be your right hand. It could be if you're left-handed. It isn't easy. I'll just say that. The ad is not easy. People recommend using toes on a separate keyboard, or, having a whole nother keyboard or something else that will kind of set it off. But when I beat 50-20, I just did it that I took my right hand off, right, and I clicked enter with my left hand on all the keybinds, which I haven't mentioned this yet. I haven't mentioned how I have my hands on the keybinds, but I think I have like a ring finger on A, middle finger on W, pointer finger on F, because when Ballora comes, you can just, or Nightmare, you can just move your finger to D, but obviously with Afton, you want to be ready for that. And then my thumb kind of controls flashlight, catch the fish, and the fan, but that is not, like, you don't have to do that, okay? But you just want to kind of it's very important that you have a good hand position on the keybinds. So just make sure that you're closing the ad with the enter button and not the mouse, okay? As you can see, Nightmare on is spawning in very, very quickly, okay? So you just got to be careful with your mouse. Okay, it did only reach like 84 degrees, but I turned on the power generator and the fan, which is 1 and space. And then when it gets down to 60, 63, 62, I just turned on the heater instead.
Please deposit 5 coins. Thank you for depositing 5 coins.
So much is happening, right? It already looks like we're in 50-20 territory. Ballora just came, you heard the laugh, Torchica's there, he's asking for coins, Nightmare BB might be standing up, someone might be in the right vent. So much to talk about, but when you get in a rhythm, you don't even realize what you're doing, you kind of just do it, okay? That's something you got to understand. When you're in a rhythm, you're just clicking stuff, you're just doing it, you know what you're doing, you get quicker and quicker, you get better and better, and as time goes on, you'll learn stuff. I would recommend watching a video that tells you the AI of the characters, the times they spawn, to know, when's the ad gonna spawn, so I'm ready for that, which is every 10 seconds, and Withered Bunny and Rockstar Bunny both are every 13 seconds, and so on, there's a lot of times, but there are videos for that, and I don't know all the times that characters spawn, but I do know quite a few of them, and that's very helpful to know when they have a chance of spawning. So my heat got up to 97 there, so I immediately wanted to turn on the fan. And I don't know why I didn't pay Rockstar Freddy. I could have just paid him, but since I turned on the heater, just quickly, as soon as I can, turn on the fan. When it gets to like 90 territory, jack-o-chica will start to spawn, and even when you turn on like the power AC, she can still sometimes kill you because she's like fully spawned. So just be very careful that it's like not very high into the 90 region. If it's at like 93, whatever, just turn on the fan quick as you can, right, get that back down. But when it starts getting, if it turns red, like, you're in a bad spot, right? So just be careful with heat. Obviously, if you're learning them one by one, that's something that you should focus on if you're doing jack-o-chica, is just keeping it cool all the time.
For depositing 5 coins.
This is why it is important not to miss the phone calls. Because now having the power generator on, even though I'm so close to winning, so I don't really need to have the power generator anymore. I can just have the fan. I will not run out of power. I'm on 48%, alright? This is really good, okay? But when the call goes off, I've died in 50-20 because of the phone call, alright? It is a problem, and it is something you can have like silent ventilation or turn off the power generator, but you should just really be stopping the phone call. Very important.
Hello. Well, if you're interested in the day too, congrats. I won't talk quite as long this time since Freddy and his friends tend to become more active.
And there we go. So all the characters that were mentioned, besides maybe Rockstar Bunny, who I just used to think was just rare, you know, I gave it up to luck. The other 3 you should really just be, you know, learning individually, or maybe you can learn them together. You know, they are all pretty difficult, but you know, just eventually put them all together, put everything you know together, add all this stuff together. And there's still characters that we haven't added, but up until this point, you're getting pretty close, you're doing pretty good, okay? Now, this point, right, Lefty, Puppet, and Chica, the 3 new ones, I recommend doing all the challenges, right? If you haven't already done them, do all the challenges. But don't just do the challenges, right? Do them in the way of 50-20, right? Which is the next, not the next point, but the last progression we'll talk about, and that, you know, in my previous video was on Obedient. All the strategies and tips that you can use to stop all these characters, especially all the hardest ones, right, the last few, you should be trying to beat the challenges with those in mind. So what I did is that I didn't think I would be able to add the Puppet or Chica, because I didn't think I could get the music box down. Right, I had the fan and the power generator, and then I had all this time where I had nothing on, and I thought, okay, I can get this, but I just didn't think I would be good at it, right? So I did the challenges because I thought I was stuck, and what I learned from the challenges was, when I did the one, I think it was Old Friends with Chica and Puppet, I was realizing, like, I can do this. Like, I am able to have the Puppet box on here for 15 seconds. Every 15 seconds, I'm able to do this. So then I tried it all together, and I realized, okay, that I did it, right? So I think that's definitely something I recommend, is doing the challenges. Or if you're already, maybe you just instantly are good at it, and that's fine, right? You don't have to do the challenges in this game, but I would recommend it. But Old Friends is like the hardest challenge. It has Foxy and Toy Freddy, and it has Chica, and it has Puppet, right? But that challenge, even though it's very difficult, especially if you're not doing it the normal way, if you're trying to do it 50-20 with luck and music box cycle, it's difficult, but it really did help me to understand how to beat the characters. That's kind of where I learned Foxy, and learned Toy Freddy, and learned Chica, and learned the Puppet, right? So that's a very good challenge to beat, and I'd recommend doing that first. But just to explain what we're doing here, every 15 seconds, alright? And this is the point where we want to, when it goes dark, we hold space and 1 so that it's power generator and the fan is off, because it's already at 60, right? At 14 seconds specifically, just do 14 seconds. It's not worth trying to do 15. Just do it 14 point something, right? You'll still have enough power. It'll still be cool enough. You know, sometimes it gets so cool that you don't even need the fan on and just the power generator. So just, you know, go for 14, and always the music box is so much more important. So don't use your music box time for the fan. I mean, you can have the fan and the music box on at the same time if it's like 90 degrees and the music box just started. Definitely don't try and risk it, because you're just gonna lose, right? But you should dig into your fan and power generator time with the music box, right? Always have at least 15 seconds of music box. You never want to have less. You never want to have the fan and power generator on in its time. You always want to make sure it's on for as long as you can. So at the 14 point something second mark, or the 15-second mark, we turn on the global music box, which is the 5 hotkey, and then just at 30 seconds and 1 minute, you'll do the fan and power generator, and 44 seconds for the global music box. So to say that again, 14:44 is global music box, okay? 1 minute is power generator and fan. And the first 14 seconds before the first music box, just power generator, which is a lot to take in, but basically you'll learn it, especially with the challenge that I mentioned. You'll learn this, and this is a big step up, right? And I also have Lefty, which he just fits in with jack-o-chica and the puppet at this point, because obviously he gets sued. But you will be able to do this because Foxy and Toy Freddy are really the luck ones, but up until this point, it's all skill, okay? This is the last amount that we can have skill, besides Funtime Foxy, which we'll talk about later. But Foxy and Toy Freddy are really the luck ones, but up until this point, you just have to learn everything. And you can still get unlucky. I'm not saying there's no luck involved, but it is more skill than luck. So just learn that. Now, a lot is happening right now, so you can't really see. Ballora, Old Man Consequences, you got the add on the screen, L chip, but it is 30 seconds, so 30, 31, you actually don't have to get it directly 30. Like I said, you don't want more fan time, but around this time, I'll be turning on the fan and the power generator, because I forgot to mention it at 14 seconds that I turned on the music box. Okay, so that should be on from 14 seconds, let's just say, up until this point, and then 44 is back to the music box. Make sure you also turn off the fan, but when you go to reset the cameras, you do turn on the heater, which does turn off the fan and the power generator, which we'll talk about when we get there. But just make sure you don't have the fan on accidentally when you have the global music box on. And as you can notice, it does make a lot of noise, but as long as the phone guy and Helpy aren't attacking you, aren't a problem, then you won't be making enough noise for long enough, especially with the music box taking over, that it should aggravate Music Man. Okay, so what I don't know if I do it exactly in this run, in this video, at 47 characters, but I usually wait till 42 seconds, right, 43 seconds maybe, but that's still pushing it, so that as soon as I come off the cameras, it's already 44 and I'm already ready for the music box on. So that's something that I might not do here, but I definitely do later. And obviously you can just go in at like 40, 41 and just have the music box on for longer, but you know, that's kind of wasting more power that you don't really need to be wasted. Okay, so Toy Chica did attack, so I didn't go into the cameras, but I really should have and just focused on Toy Chica later. But I should have gone into the cameras, 42, 43, right, and then heater, left door, top vent, out of the cameras, and then turn on the music box, and obviously still open the left door and the top vent. Now, I just did do the camera flip without being able to see, just as proof that if you know where the button is, you can kind of learn what you're doing, and then bring your mouse over to the mask, and do the ad after you do all the important stuff, alright? And obviously, you will make mistakes with the cycle, like I have done in this video. You won't do it perfectly, but you will just get better and better, and unless you lose, there is no problem with, you know, messing it up a little bit, failing a little bit.
Deposit 5 coins. Please deposit 5 coins. Please deposit 5 coins. Please deposit 5 coins.
Freddy does.
Please deposit 5 coins.
Freddy doesn't like.
Thank you for depositing 5 coins.
Now, what do I recommend with using the heater on Freddy when you're doing the music box and you're doing the power generator is, if it's the fan, obviously then it can get pretty hot and you might need to have the fan on with the music box. But if it digs into music box time, just really how many seconds you think, you don't have to actually count. You know, if he takes 3 seconds to deactivate, you know, then you wait till 1 minute 3 seconds or even 4 seconds, right? So that's kind of how you fix the cycle. Make sure you're always on time with the music box, but you never really have to be on time with the fan and power generator. Even though I said getting the fan in the cycle is really, you don't have to do it on time, you still shouldn't just wait unnecessary time with the music box on. As long as that time is made up for, you can just switch it over, okay? Because it does save power, because with the fan and the power generator is negating the fan's power, so you're basically using no power, but when the music box is on, it's only the music box. And to explain why, is that you can have the fan on with any system. You can have fan in the power generator, weirdly fan in the heater, fan in the power AC, fan in the music box, and you know, the other, I think it's just silent ventilation. I think that's it. There might be another one, but you can have the fan on with any of those, but you cannot have them on with each other. So you cannot have the music box and the power generator, and that's why the heater breaks up the cycle of the power generator and the music box. And I did say the heater does turn the fan off, which it does, but you can just turn the fan on after you turn on the heater, which is like, you never need to do that. That is so unnecessary. But it's not like things deactivate the fan and you're not supposed to have it on. It's like the heater just does. So fan in every one of the systems, but the systems don't cross over themselves.
Anyway,
Now this is the first time I did it, so I'm not going to let the score play out, because it does go for a while, and it is pretty loud. But I will say that step up in difficulty, if you've made it to this point, like, you just got to do 50-20. Like, at this point, you have done so much. You know, you started basically nothing, distractions, sitting there in the office, and then there was office stalling, and then you learned the fan and Ballora, Nightmare On, Nightmare Baby, all the characters, and then you've learnt the 15-second cycles. At this point, you're very close. Unfortunately, the last 3 characters are the hardest to understand and most unfair, and it's not really something you can teach how to get better at them, but you will just sometimes get, you know, annoying deaths that are kind of just unfair, and there are ways to make it more lucky, but still. Something interesting is that we have only added 2 more characters. It was 0 to 29, and then 29 to 35, but now it's only 47 to 49. And the reason that we want to learn 49, and something I'm about to explain in a second of you know what I would recommend doing. When you have all 50 on, Zor, which is the black and white version of Didi, who, if you've even played this game, you probably know who that is. Zor is the black and white version who automatically, every single time, spawns every secret character in a row, right? So when you have all 50 on, that will happen, and that will add, you know, 6 new threats on top of Foxy and Funtime Foxy and Toy Freddy, which are already really hard, especially together, right? So you want to practice 49, and I would recommend, what I did is do 49 with Foxy one time, and then the next time Funtime Foxy, so you can learn both of their mechanics. Now both are very hard. I mean, it's completely up to how well you know the characters, or you know, how lucky you get, whether, you know, which one you think is harder, but you need to learn both, or at least I think you should learn both before you try to do them together. And you could have them all on and then one of them on like 19 to practice, but at that point you may as well go with the secret characters as well. So what we're adding is Toy Freddy and Foxy. Toy Freddy is basically just luck. You don't want to open the cameras at 5 seconds or 10 seconds, and at the start you want to block him off. And then Foxy is a 0 frame camera flip. There is another strategy, and I'll explain it when we get there. Now, I will say, you do not have to block Toy Freddy off, okay? Not even once. You don't have to go to him. But you really should, at least just at the start, do it once, especially in 50-20, okay? I know on controller, it is really hard to do this, but if you're doing keyboard, just block them off at the start, right? Like, you really need to in 50-20 to increase your chances of surviving. And just block it off, and basically, we're going to leave it up to luck, alright? So to get as lucky as we can, we're going to block them off at the start. We're not going to open the camera at 5 seconds or 10 seconds. So if it ends in 5 or 0, not the milliseconds, the actual seconds, then we just don't want to open it. I don't really understand how that works, but obviously I'll have like a AI explaining video in the description. You know, someone who has a guide on the AI to try and better explain it. But this is just luck, okay? Toy Freddy could be considerably the most annoying character in the game, especially in 50-20. He really just leaves it up to luck. Sometimes you just open the camera, completely fine time, open it for like, you know, 5 milliseconds, and he just kills you, right? Sometimes he can just be unfair. So, just luck. And this requires you to be very, very good at being very quick on the cameras. Instantly in and out, right? And this is why people, like I was saying before, close the left door and turn on the heater separately from the vent, so you can be in and out of the cameras instantly, basically. You want to be as quick as possible. But you can still win when you do my, you know, all 3 in a row and open the cameras. But obviously he is very annoying. Now, something I did do here, which is unnecessary, but you know, you can still do it, is if Foxy is there, or you can just guess if he's there because you actually don't know, you can just go to camera 5 before you go to camera 2, and if he's there, you know, you can hold him off for like an extra second, which really is not necessary, but I did it anyways, at least in this recording. You can do it, it really doesn't help, but sure, you still have time because you just blocked off Toy Freddy. He isn't going to get to you yet. You can be on the cameras at the start. So because we saw Foxy on his camera, I mean, we didn't see him, but Bonnie didn't attack, so, I mean, not attack, just like disable the cameras. So we know that Foxy's there, and that's why his figurine is on the table. I'm gonna catch the fish, which is very important now, that when we add Foxy, we catch the fish every time. I'm gonna flash Nightmare BB, and then I'm going to show you how to get rid of Foxy. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know how I won here, okay? This round I clearly got very lucky, but at around 5 seconds, alright? You don't want to do it instantly, you don't want to do it the second the cameras come down. Let's just say 5 seconds. I mean, the longer you wait, the luckier, the better luck you have. But truly, after like 5 seconds, maybe 7 seconds, right, just somewhere in that period of time, as quick as possible, basically. Because in 50-20 there's so many threats you have to immediately focus on, that by the time you're ready to handle him, it should have already been time. You just want to... There's 2 different strategies, but I'm just going to say mine because that is probably the easiest one, the most consistent one. You just put your mouse over the camera button, so not the keybind, this box down here, right, with the arrows on it. You do like a quick up and down twice kind of thing, where you open and close the camera so fast that no one can get in. I don't really understand how it was programmed, but even though the camera is open for literally 0 frames, so no one spawns or moves or does anything, Foxy can still change to Bonnie on the table. And we want Bonnie on the table for as long as we can, and this is why we wait. Well, why people, if you've seen a video of someone beating 50-20, why you wait so long before you open the cameras. We want Bonnie on the table for as long as possible. Like, we want him on there for like 40 seconds, right? We want to get, it's not really possible to get 40 seconds. I'll say more 30 realistically. You're really not getting 40 seconds on the table. It's, that's still possible, but realistically, 30 seconds, 35 seconds, especially in this first period, not 40 seconds, but you should try and get him as long as you can on the table. Block off Foxy, because even when Foxy isn't spawning, when he's like not physically in the room, he's still progressing, right? That's just how the AI works. So we don't want him on the table basically any of the time. So that's what Foxy is. In a second I'm gonna do the zero frame camera flip, but that's basically it. You just want him off the table as long as you can. And you can also, this is the other strategy, close, I think it's just the top vent and the left door, and just open the camera for like, a frame, just as quickly as you can, get off and on. But it's really, that does make a lot more issues. Even though 0 frame camera flip is pretty hard, I think doing the actual camera flip might just be harder. So depending on which one you want to learn, I would recommend 0 frame camera flip. So that was it right there, right? So no one spawned, nothing came through, you didn't even see the monitor for 1 frame, it was black the entire time, it came down, and now Bonnie's on the table, and we want to wait until it gets pretty dark, like really dark, sometimes you can't even see, before we reset the ventilation. But obviously you don't want to wait till you literally can't see, because that means it's beyond redemption. But at the point where it's like really dark, you want to, reset the ventilation, and then he'll probably be there again, and then you wait like 5 seconds, 7 seconds, maybe even 10 if there's a lot of important stuff going on, but it should be like the main priority. Another thing you can do is close the top vent and potentially the left door, depending on how recently you reset the ventilation. Close the top vent while you're doing the flip, just in case you miss it, and spend a frame on there, and Mangle might get through. But if the top vent's closed, no one will. But that obviously is a lot more risky. So just try and do it, get better at it, practice it by itself, do the challenges like I said, and eventually you'll get better and better to the point where you're doing it consistently. Another thing I will mention is that I am getting lucky with the flips, because sometimes Foxy will just be stubborn, right? Sometimes he can just be unfair, or it seems like he's being unfair and progress faster than usual, but truly the problem is keeping him on the table, and the luck behind it is really him being, not leaving the table. And like I said, the longer you wait, the more likely Bonnie will be on the table when you do the flip. But sometimes you just gotta spam the 0 frame camera flips, try and do them consistently without having them open for a frame, and he'll eventually go away. because you don't want to, you know, oh, he didn't go away, so I'm going to wait an extra 5 seconds. Just keep trying. But hopefully you can get lucky, especially when you're doing 49, that you can just get a very lucky run where Bonnie is, you know, is on the table, Foxy doesn't immediately spawn, that kind of thing. As you can see right there, I tried to do the flip, but because I failed Old Man Consequences game, I couldn't do it, right? Because it doesn't even let you open the camera for any amount of frames. It doesn't let you touch the camera, right? So you want to get it not because, you know, you might not be able to go on the cameras. You want to always get it because you need to do the flip. So that's why it gets, you know, the El Chip is a problem when you have Nightmare on. Helpy is a problem. Also, Phone Guy is a problem. Both of them when you have Music Man on. And then Old Man Consequences is the problem when you have Foxy. So these characters that originally seemed like 3 points when we're back at, you know, 5,000 are now actually becoming problems. So we need to be good. You need to be good at stopping these threats. Even if they won't kill you, they won't ruin anything, they can make other characters a lot harder. Or maybe you'll just die by another character because they make your, you know, they just make it impossible to stop them. And there we go. Now, it might be something that you want to do that, oh, you know, Toy Freddy is giving me problems, and Foxy is also giving me problems. I'll just do them one at a time, right? I'll just learn them. But the problem is that if they both kind of have this luck to them, then it's a lot better just to get lucky with both, you know, which is obviously more unlucky. You have to have more luck there, but it's better to just get lucky with both at the same time than get lucky with each one individually. So that's why this 49 could be considerably harder than the next one, but I do believe that Funtime Foxy is harder. So as you can see, this is also 49, this is also 9,800, except this time it is with Funtime Foxy instead of Foxy. Now, like I said, you could just have one of them on 19, so you don't have the secret characters, but these two characters are truly the hardest. Even though Funtime Freddy is probably the most annoying, these two characters are really hard. Whole new kind of mechanic and kind of way that you play, you know, and go about things and use the free time that you have, like the safe periods. But this time we're going to be using characters like Helpy and JJ and Balloon Boy to grind our coins. This is what you see in all the 50-20 runs, except this time we will not deal with Foxy, so only the start is going to be, you know, annoying and hard, but we will also not be dealing with the secret characters. So it is still very difficult, right? Everything that I've talked about, and you've learned all the different characters on top of Funtime Foxy, which is, you know, first 30 seconds just grinding out coins, and, you know, buying the death coin, using the death coin on him, which you'll see. So this is still very hard, and it is basically the closest thing to 50-20 without having actually 50-20. Now, why did I move the wet floor sign? I don't really understand. The thing is, it's just, you just move the wet floor sign because I think two things mainly. I think Rockstar Chica is more likely to spawn on the right side, and I'll show you why in a second. You're not going to be on camera too for a bit, so just to have it there is helpful. But I think the second thing is also that she can't get through if the door is closed, I'm pretty sure. So we're closing the left door for Freddy anyways, so if it's on the right side and we're closing the left door, she can't get in, and then we go to camera 2 and put it back to the left side, because then we're camera stalling camera 2, which I really didn't talk about camera stalling. I didn't really explain any of the characters there, but you know, we watch them, they don't move. The 3 plushie characters they're not important, and Rockstar Chica also wasn't important because the wet floor sign blocks her and it was blocking the left side and we're watching the right side, so that's just an easy counter. We don't really have to do anything, but we want to move it to the right at the start because we're going to close the left door and I think she's more likely to spawn on the right. But basically just do it, because usually when I don't move it to the right, she gets me, so I think that's just the best way to go about it, and the best way to win. And I'm sure someone could explain, you know, why that's the best reason, but I think I gave the basic reasoning, like you want it over there to start because, you know, you're closing the left door or whatever. So that's something that you have to do, and I'd recommend clicking the top right of the wet floor sign twice. I don't know how you even move it on controller. Like I said, I'm only talking about keyboard, so I don't know controller, but some things like Toy Freddy and the wet floor sign, if you're on controller, I think you just leave it and hope. I mean, and I'll explain why later. Something else to do with 5020 that makes it that more important, especially for how I do it. Same thing with Toy Freddy. Collect some coins along the way on both Toy Freddy's camera and the prize counter, specifically Toy Freddy's. And something that I don't do here, but is something that I do in 5020, which I think is very helpful, is just before you leave the cameras, right? You want to stay on camera 7, or you can stay on camera 8, but I'm telling you how I did it because I think that's the easiest way to go about everything. You're on camera 7, so you're ready to buy the coin, but you have to switch systems, so you have to go either ducts or vents back to cameras. If before you leave the cameras you go to one of the other systems, vents or ducts, then all you need to do is go back to cameras instead of doing like the triple switch. So that makes it a lot easier, and that's for Phantom Mangle because she doesn't disappear unless you switch systems. Alright, so I think there's probably an easier way to do that. I mean, you can really just do the triple switch or do it the way I said it, do whatever you want, but you do need to switch systems when you go to buy the coin to get rid of her so that she doesn't, you know, like get you out of the cameras and create a lot of noise. Like that is a big problem, and you know, a run ender. So yeah, you just want to, I think that's the best thing to do. Go to the prize corner, switch systems, and then go back when you're ready to buy the coin. And we're at 3 coins right now. And we the best thing to do is guess for Balloon Boy and JJ. Every time we come out of the cameras, there is many different ways of doing this. When we get into this territory of characters and things you can do, there's many different ways to do everything, rather than I'm explaining like the Foxy flip, which I talked about, and which camera you go on, and obviously the vent system or duct system if you want to do that, which is something that people do. But basically how I do it, which is just what I'll be saying, is I stay on the left, close the right vent every time I come out of the cameras. So we're just going to be opening and closing the cameras very quick to make the characters spawn over and over so we can block them off and get the coins. Okay, I stay on the left side, watch for Helpy. If I hear Nightmare or Nightmare Fredbear, I can look around. Okay, I'm not going to try and like force myself to stay on the left, and I'm just going to close the right vent. I'm just going to, every time I come out of the camera, just close it, wait for a third. If there is none, open it. You do have to wait, by the way. Don't just like click, because then they won't get blocked off. Like close it for 1 second, 2 seconds, however long it is. I don't think it's more like 1 second something maybe, around that, you know, time. And you flash Nightmare Baby if he's standing up. You make sure you get rid of Nightmare or Nightmare Fredbear, because they also give you coins, but they'll you know, kill you if you don't get rid of them. So, you know, extra coins. But like I said, they won't spawn that often. They can only spawn like every 10 seconds if you're on the cameras. So if you're on the cameras at 10 seconds, then they'll spawn, but I don't think they will. You know, I know they won't if you aren't, but it might also be at 5 seconds, but I'm pretty sure it's just 10. So very confusing, a lot to take in. Very different from Foxy's, where we basically just added the 0 frame camera flip. This is, you know, basically 50-20, what makes 50-20 50-20. But what I've explained should hopefully help you understand, you know, block off BB and JJ, click on Helpy, block off Nightmare Fredbear if they're there, right? Because they're not spawning as often as the other two, and Flash, Nightmare BB, and there's also going to be other problems, Nightmare on, Ballora, Toy Chica, Toy Freddy, not Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, and you need to be also focused on the time. For the music box, it's a lot, okay? So this one is definitely harder, even though you'll probably die unfairly a lot more on Foxy, Toy Freddy, right? It will be very unfair, very difficult, very annoying where you're dying like so close to the end. This one, you're just going to have to keep resetting over and over right at the start. I would like to say though, even though Toy Chica and Toy Bonnie slow you down a lot and they are pretty annoying, they are a very good indicator because they spawn at 14 seconds and 15 seconds of when you need to switch the music box. And I think that's the same. I mean, it's same for the ad to know when it's 10 seconds. Same for Ballora because I think she's also 14, somewhere around there. So those characters are annoying and they make it harder, but they do kind of give you the benefit of knowing when to switch, right? So that's something that you want to, you know, keep an eye out. If Toy Bonnie is in the office, you should already be on the music box, okay? So hang up the call, get rid of Old Man Consequences, right? You pop Helpy, just guess the vent. I mean, you can look over, but just every time, just close right vent when you hear the thud, or if you don't hear the thud, open it back up, open the cameras, close the cameras, do everything again, right? And make your way up to 10 coins. Now, a lot just happened, okay? It's very different to talk about when Zora is not spawning. He or she, they are not a problem, right? But basically, whenever you're ready, I don't know why I went in. I really didn't know at this time when Withered Bonnie or Rockstar Bonnie spawned, but I did go in at, 39 seconds, which is a problem. We don't want to be on the cameras at 39. If you go in on 39, it'll probably be 39.1 by the time you go in, so that it's not a problem, so that's a good thing. But at 45 seconds, we have to be at, we have to get rid of Funtime Foxy, we have to be like at camera 2 around that time. So I left it really late, and I can't believe this is the one that I actually got it, because, I left it really late. And I should be going into the cameras a lot earlier to buy the coin, but obviously coin times don't really, it's not the same without Zor or XOR, but you still want to try and get an early time, try not to get 26, 39, just basically, to try and go in, alright, at 26, like when it hits 26, go in, because that is the time, right, and that's obviously making you earn coins a lot quicker, but that lines up with everything. If it's at 26, you'll be in like 26.1, so that's, the 2 Bonnies gone, and then by the time you're out of the cameras, it will be 30 seconds, the time you need to put the fan. So that's obviously the best time, but that's not an easy time. And before you go into the cameras, you should put on 2 seconds before you go in, should be the heater, and then switch back to what you're on, either the fan or the music box. So let's just say I'm going to go in at 39, at 37, 36 point something, turn on the heater, and then at 39, or whenever you go in, you just switch back to what you had on, and you close the left door, top vent, right vent. And this is what I was talking about when I said the way I do it. I don't close the right door, because the only 2 things that can spawn there are Ballora, right, and Nightmare. Just Nightmare. So if you hear his laugh, which might be really hard to hear, you can block him off, or you can just guess, like when you go into the cameras, you can just close it, And with Ballora, she does make your cameras make it go dark, and I think like staticky, so you can just close that off when you see that, or you can just listen to her, or you know, you can just guess it, like when you go into the cameras, you reach like the prize corner or Funtime Cove, you can just close it. Okay, you can try and also just close the right door, because that's how people used to do it. They just closed all the doors while they're on the cameras, but that has a lot more power usage to the point where you might just fail because of power, right? So you want to try and not close the right door, what I did, right? And obviously that makes it, sometimes you'll die to Nightmare or Ballora, or something like that, or you'll stay longer on the cameras because Ballora's made it go dark. You have to block her off, and then, you know, you can't really see what's going on. So, you know, there's benefits and there's also, you know, problems with it. But I would say there is no need of closing the right door. I mean, that is really the same with the left door as well, and the right vent. I mean, besides if Scrap Trap or Afton spawns, then that's, you know, you kind of want it to already be closed. You don't want to have to think about that. That's why I would just leave that closed. But the left door, if you hear a thud or, you know, whatever, you don't really know when Freddy's going to be there, so it's best just to have it closed. But the right door is really not that necessary. So you close the 3 doors, you had the heater on for like 2 seconds, now you're back on your system, now you're on the cameras. Alright, I do the triple system switch. I'm gonna catch the fish, because if I miss it, it's just over, right? I buy the coin. 2 things I forgot to mention. If Nightmare immediately spawns at the start of the night over the web floor sign, you'll have a very, very short amount of time to switch it, and at that point you might just die, or you might just forget it, like go into the cameras without switching it, and then you die to Rockstar Chica later. And also that you can get the balloon, a part of the Trash and the Gang, on Toy Freddy's camera, which can be, you know, just completely blocked and you can't see. Now both things are beatable, right? Both of those things are possible. You can still win. It's still possible. Most of the time it's still possible, right? But I think if either of those things happen, especially if they both happen on one time, you can just quit, alright? Hold escape. It's not, that's what I used to do. If either of those things happen, you just leave, right? It's just not, I mean, it's really, you can just stop it. Like, you can just move the web floor sign later, or you can just go out of the cameras and back into the cameras, you know, hope that the balloon is moved. Obviously switch systems every time you go, if you go back into the cameras after the balloon has despawned because of Nightmare Mangle, Phantom Mangle. That's an important thing. If you go into the cameras that isn't resetting ventilation, always switch systems, right? And then you can actually block off Toy Freddy and then switch to the prize corner. But that's, you know, a lot of extra added thought process, and for a first time it's really not worth trying to beat it then. So get the 10 coins, buy the death coin, go to camera 6 and death coin Funtime Foxy, and then go to camera 2, go out of the cameras. It's about to be 44 seconds, so I'm about to switch to the music box by the time I get out of here. Immediately open all 3 doors. As soon as you get out, open all 3 doors, right? Like the second you leave it, put on the mask, important. Like, follow the rhythms you've been following, but that's important. Camera 2, out.
Coins.
Oh, wait, am I going to open them?
Please deposit 5.
Okay, I did it pretty slow there. As you can see, Scrap Baby has moved. We're going to shock her, we're going to flash Nightmare Balloon Boy, and we're going to pay Rockstar Freddy. Now, at this point, we are back into the rhythm. Obviously, we are a lot lower on power than usual, but if we follow the rhythms of the music box and the fan and the power generator and do everything else as normal, now, at this point, you are fine, right? It's just the same, right? Besides Toy Freddy, everything is normal now.
And coins. Please, thank you for deposit.
And as you can see, Nightmare was at the right door, so I am going to close that before the next time I try to open up the cameras. Also, something I forgot to mention, always reset the ventilation before you leave the cameras after Deathcoin and Foxy, because you don't want to have to go back onto the cameras after you just did that to reset the ventilation. So if you go in at 26 seconds, like I said, just wait that extra half second for the ventilation to go off and reset it. So at this point now, you're basically just doing 47, right? Toy Freddy is obviously just want to be on the cameras quick, so he's basically not even something you think about anymore. It's just a one time. As soon as you block off Toy Freddy, you forget about him. Even if you don't, like, you just forget about him. He's not really an issue. I mean, sometimes he'll just unfairly kill you, so he is an issue in that regard, but still, it's not something you think about. And obviously, Funtime Foxy is gone. Foxy was never on, so now it's just 47 basically. So you're just repeating the same cycle. And obviously that first 40 seconds I had there, right, that was a lot to take in. A lot of stuff was happening. It was bombarding, just a whole new system you have to do. But then at this point, it's all fine again. As long as you can beat 47, this should be easy. Well, besides power. Power can still be an issue if you run out of power. Oh man, I only just beat it. 1% power. This was 49 and we're still getting close, right? So that's something that you definitely want to take into consideration is power, right? That's something that's very important on top of that whole start section, and obviously keeping the cycle with the power generator and the puppet box. The power is a very important thing, right? So you gotta be careful and mindful of that. Well, this is it. If you've made it this far, this is 50-20, the only goal you have left. If you've done both 49s, then the only problem we have left is Zor and the secret characters. So you've already learned everything. You have to put everything together, Foxy and Funtime Foxy, all the threats, all the characters. But this time, since we've already learned everything, we're just going to be talking about the new stuff, which is the secret characters. So how Zor or XOR works is that they spawn at it's not really every 11 seconds because it's 11, 21, 31, 41. So it's like first 11 and then it's 10 onwards, right? So at every, double digits with the 1 on the end, not the first 1 second, but 11, 21, like I was saying, etc., he will spawn. And about 10 seconds after that, they'll make the secret characters spawn. So the one that I won on and the one that I recommend trying to aim for, even though it is just luck, is 11. You can do 21, but if you do get 31, it is actually impossible. I mean, I don't know if it's actually physically impossible. I think there's a chance that 31 is possible, but if it's 21 seconds in and Zor doesn't spawn, just end it, right? It's when I was playing, it wasn't possible, especially first time doing it. I mean, I could be wrong, and 31 is literally just not possible, but I think it might actually be. So but 41, that's not possible. 100%. 51, that's absolutely impossible. Already passed when you're supposed to be on the cameras. So you want to try and get 11, but 21 is possible. The reason you want to get 11 is that you're on the cameras earlier, which is better for Toy Freddy's luck, right? And it also means that you basically stay in the cycle, like I was saying when I was saying you go on the camera at 26, you stay in the cycle of the fan and the music box, okay? So by the time you get off the camera, Nightmare Chica will spawn, who we'll talk about in a second, and you want to turn on the power AC to get rid of her, and that's in the period where you should already have the fan. And obviously you just turned on the heater, so it's hot, so it perfectly lines up when they spawn at 11. But 21 is still possible, but you do kind of have to break up your cycle. I would say if they spawn at 21, put on the heater at like 27, 28, switch it back to the music box, at, you know, around 30, 31. Go into the cameras after closing the doors, because you don't want to get close to 39 when you do get 21. It's pretty hard to avoid getting off the cameras at, you know, before 39, but still you want to try and go as fast as possible. And then while you're watching, like around the time you're watching Plushtrap, who we'll talk about in a second, and you're death coining Funtime Foxy, then you should turn on the fan. But the thing is, it's getting so close to the power box, the music box time 44, that you're probably gonna have to have the fan on during the music box. It just is a lot more complicated. So we're just gonna go with 11 as the one you should be getting. But it is still possible 21. But the video that I've recorded of me beating 50-20, I do get 11 seconds. So, you know, that's what we'll go off. And we just want to do Funtime Foxy, right? We won't worry about Foxy now. We'll worry about Funtime Foxy and the secret characters at the start. First, like 40 seconds here. 30 seconds. Now, I do actually make a mistake in the video where Nightmare was the only one who spawned. It wasn't Nightmare, Fredbear, and Nightmare. It was only Nightmare on the right side, but I closed both doors. It doesn't really matter, but I just wanted to point that out, that I did make a mistake there. You should not try and rush things, but also be as quick as possible when you're collecting the coins. Very important that you don't miss the music box time, right? Very important, okay? So you make sure you're watching the time. And as you can see, Zor or Exor has spawned at 11 seconds, so they're gonna spawn the secret characters at around 20, okay? And I'll talk about the secret characters when they appear. So here is Shadow Bonnie, right? Shadow Bonnie just makes things dark, so you can't tell which doors are closed, and there's nothing you can do. You can't stop them. They're just there. They just make it dark. But they go away. By the time you're off the cameras, they'll probably be gone. So Shadow Bonnie is probably the least threatening, like the one that's the easiest out of all of them, out of all 6 that spawn. Obviously you can't see which doors are closed, but that really isn't a problem if you remember what you've done. So when it gets to about 24 seconds, as you'll see, and as I said before, I turn on the heater for like 2 seconds, and then I switch back to music box, go on the cameras, and I buy the coin, the Funtime Foxy, and then the other secret characters to be talked about, you know, when we get there. So heater's on, music box, all the doors, buy the coin. This guy is Plushtrap, right? He is the thing that's important about collecting coins quick enough. If the second character has spawned, which is Plushtrap, pretty sure, and you have, you know, 7 coins, you just gotta end it, right? Because if you have 10 coins but Nightmare Chica's already spawned, Plushtrap's probably just going to kill you anyways, so there's no point of even trying. You should just the thing with 50-20 is that so much more has to line up. Like, there's so much more luck that you gotta have. You know, you don't want Nightmare to spawn over the wet floor sign. You gotta be lucky with Foxy. You gotta be lucky with Toy Freddy. You want Zor to be at 11. You wanna get rid of the ad. Like, the ad shouldn't spawn, and that you don't miss like, so much stuff is happening, right? And eventually, after time, you'll get the pattern good enough to the point where it's just luck that is holding you back, right? That it's not skill, you know, it's not the music box, it's not, you know, kind of missing buttons with your mouse or anything. It should just be luck that is holding you back. So we just want to stay on the camera until he gets off the chair. Go to camera 2, and as you can see, the ventilation is now ready on camera 2 to turn off at like the exact second right there at 30 seconds. So we just reset it because we're already on the cameras. We go off the cameras, put on the mask, and open all 3 doors, unless you closed 4, but you know. And I'd also recommend, especially if Zor spawns at 11, that you close the right door as soon as you get out the cameras, or just check for Nightmare because he's most likely going to be there. And there's been times where I've died because I didn't check for him, and then the next time I opened the cameras he was still there and I never got rid of him. So that's something I'd recommend thinking about Nightmare, just in case he's there and you didn't notice. So Scrap Baby is standing up. Shadow Bonnie's still here. We're currently in the time where we should have the fan on, you know, and we turn on the power. You should probably turn on the power AC as soon as a new challenger has appeared. The third one, this one, shows up. You should probably just have on the power AC, and then turn it off as quick as you can, right? Because if Nightmare Chica is immediately gone, you're just wasting power. Unnecessary power that you don't need to waste. So just go to the fan as soon as she's gone. And obviously it's not something that I can really explain. You'll understand if you do it like that. You just turn on the power AC and she just goes away. You kind of just have it on for at least 3 seconds, you know, kind of 33 to 36, right, kind of time. And then you just turn back to the fan, and then when it's 44 you go music box again. You know, that's basically just the rhythm. And as you can see, Bonnie's on the desk, so everything is okay. And now we've experienced 3 secret characters, and there's still 3 more.
Oh, that's me.
Move the sign back to the left, okay? That is very important. It's not the most important thing you have to do, but you have to make sure you still do it, because now you're cam stalling the right camera, and now the wet floor sign is on the left. So that's, you know, it's important that you move that back after you're done death coining and watching plus trapping, basically when you're off the cameras at the start. Here is the 4th secret character, and you just click her nose. She is the only one that is a threat the entire night. She's the only one that, you know, can keep coming back, right? Because all the other ones are like one-time thing, but she can keep coming back, even though she doesn't usually. She comes back like twice. It's rare that she comes back, you know, more than that. Sometimes it's just once, sometimes it's like 4 times. But you know, you just tap the nose. Sometimes it can be annoying to tap the nose if you can't see, but you just tap the nose and she goes away. And then what I was going to say was this period of time is basically just 4920, besides the secret characters who are like Bonnet, which is the one in front of us, and the other ones we're about to see. This is literally just 4920 Foxy mode, right? So because Funtime Foxy is gone, and now it's basically 47, but it's also Toy Freddy and also Foxy, so it's just 49 with Foxy and also the secret characters. Basically just saying Funtime Foxy is no longer a problem, that is out of the picture, and now it's like 1/2 of the puzzle is left. Here's the 5th secret character, or I believe is the last spawning one, but I don't think the mini arenas, who I think is the 5th, they don't spawn until the camera comes up, and that's why it's important to get the ventilation in the start period, because if you open it back up at like 43, like you would usually do in a normal, you know, 49 Foxy run, it's kind of like they'll spawn at an earlier time than they could have spawned or should spawn if you leave it. So, you know, just make sure you get the ventilation so they spawn last. But I was just saying that because I think they do spawn before Lolbit, which is the one in front of us right now, but you know, they didn't because I haven't opened the cameras yet. So Lolbit is just, you take your hand off and it's just like clicking enter, except you click LOL, right? You can just spam L first and then O and L until it goes away. Should be very quick. All she does is raise the noise for a short period of time, then she's gone, it's, you know, removed, that's over, okay? So that's something you got to get out of the way so it doesn't aggravate Music Man. As soon as she spawns, just try and move your hand to type LOL, and that's it. She never spawns again.
I'm ready for my close-up.
Now, as you can see, the mini arenas have now spawned because we did open the cameras, and all they do, they only spawn one time, just like Shadow Bonnie, right, for like an hour of the night. And after that, next time you open the cameras, they should just be gone. But during this time, it is hard to see Bonnet 1, right? Nightmare Balloon Boy too, sometimes the right vent if there's anyone in it, even though you can just guess it, which is Balloon Boy and JJ. Sometimes Nightmare or Nightmare Fredbear if they're there, but they really shouldn't be if you're quickly opening and closing the camera. And then Foxy, which is the most important one. And the biggest thing about Foxy is that you should kind of just guess. Like, after about 7 seconds, you really should just try and do the 0 frame camera flip. Maybe at like 6 seconds, maybe, you know, do it quicker than that. But you can still kind of see the character on the desk, but sometimes you get distracted at looking at the character at the desk, and your mouse is accidentally on Nightmare on. So you kind of do just want to guess that Foxy's there. You know, try and see if he's there, and then do the frame flip. Try and see if Bonnie's there, and just kind of hope, and still do it even, I can't see, you know, he might not be there. He's probably there, okay? 99% chance, so you just want to do that.
Please deposit 5 coins. Thank you for depositing 5 coins.
As you can see, I didn't even see Foxy, but I just did the flip, which actually worked. I did get lucky there. As you can see, we're safe from Foxy because it did switch to Bonnie, and now the mini arenas are gone. And now it is literally just 49-20 Foxy mode. So it's just the secret characters are now all done besides Bonnet. So it is literally at this point, around 2 minutes in, it should literally just be 49-20 Foxy, but with Bonnet. Okay, and if you can beat that, besides power, you shouldn't have much difficulty from this point on beating this. That doesn't mean that you can get unlucky with things or that Foxy can be stubborn, but still, like, from this point onwards, you should be able to do the cycles easily and defend all the threats, but you will still die sometimes, which is, you know, unfortunate, but that's just what's gonna happen. Now, as you can see there, Foxy, that is the example of Foxy being stubborn, right? I waited a few seconds, I tried it, he didn't leave 3 times, but I kept spamming it, and eventually Bonnie came through. So that's you don't want to try and just wait a few extra seconds now because he didn't switch. You can just, even though it's hard to keep doing it consistently, just keep trying doing it until he disappears. But sometimes he can be so stubborn that, like, he genuinely never leaves, and that's just, you know, the luck of it. And this should be the last camera flip here, because, you know, I still, even though it's getting very close to me winning, I still had to do that flip, I think. And now, because it's the end, you know, 4:30, I didn't have to get rid of Foxy. So you did all that, you progressed all the way through, learning every set of characters, all the characters individually, hopefully did all the challenges, which really help. And then you beat 50-20, and I think it's very important to have progression, like especially a guide, to know, you know, how do I get to that point? Like, what should I be adding? Because sometimes it's like, you know, you're adding things and it might be too hard, or you don't really understand it, or some things can clump together that you didn't really know. Like, for example, if you have Jack-o-Chica, Puppet, and Chica all on, then Lefty can just be added on and there is no change, kind of thing. You know, things that you might not know. It's helpful to have kind of some idea of how you should be progressing and where you should be going next, with which characters are easier or harder. So I hope that this guide could help people. I mean, this is really how I progressed, besides the first, you know, two videos I had there, which I did after I beat 5020. Those truly were what my scores used to be, around 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, before I eventually reached 8,000 recently. Well, not that recently, but, you know, this year. And that's my progression, and I hope that other people can kind of learn from that, and also the tips I gave on stuff like Foxy, and you know, just hope this was helpful. And if anyone wants to beat 5020, I hope this kind of showed them you know, how they should be progressing, right? So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.